Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Black Mind Garden Alive podcast episode. Now, I know there'll be some people who are listening live, there'll be some people who will be listening on the replay, but I want to welcome you to another episode. Here we are remapping minds so we can create a life you design. And today I am super excited because I have my friend and colleague here, Dr. Taniqua Miller. She is the owner of Taniqua MD. She is a physician. She is a life coach. She focuses on, I'm gonna let her tell you the whole thing, but she focuses on helping women of color quit the things that they need to be quitting in life. That's what we're talking about today. Like, what are the things that we as Black women and women of color hold on to that we don't need to be holding on to anymore? What are the things we need to be quitting? So I want to welcome you to the show, Dr.
Thank you for having
Taniqua. How are
me.
you? I'm so
You-
excited.
Please mention that I am a fangirl and client of yours too. Please mention that, like
Yes,
my
ma'am.
venturing into coaching, which absolutely changed my life and got me on this quitting journey. Let me just say that.
Yay. Such an honor. It's such an honor to be able to be your coach. I mean, you're just the most amazing person. I just have really fangirled you and really admired how you've taken on this quit journey. And it's interesting because I think when people think about quitting, they think about very specific things. So before we jump into it, because I can go deep, real fast. I want people to know who you are. I know you, and I want my audience to really get to know who you
Absolutely.
are and about your journey.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So I am Dr. Taniqua, born and bred, Bronx, New York. I am the first of a lot of things in my family. My family originates from the Caribbean, Trini Massive. Where's my Trinidad Pope? And so coming into the United States, from if you let my grandmother tell it, she was here on a Thursday. She was working by Monday. And so watching my family kind of like build this like American dream, that was like my journey in childhood. And for me, I was the first of many. I was the first of going to college. I was the first to become a physician. I was the first like to get married, kind of like in this country. And there were a lot of hats that I was wearing and a lot of responsibilities and roles that I took on because I was the first, there's a lot of pressure there. And so when I found myself behind the wheel of my minivan with crippling anxiety because I was working in a work environment that I felt was undervaluing me, was not really seeing me as a human being, really seeing me for my talents. I felt like I was ruffling feathers, but not in the right way, and was kind of being cast aside.
Right.
It really had me do a reevaluation of what is my purpose? What am I trying to achieve in my life? On the suggestion and the recommendation of a colleague, I took a break. And that was something that was filled with a lot of shame because here it is on paper, I look pretty good, right? Like in one generation, I've been able to amass this incredible achievement of becoming a physician.
Right.
But on the inside, I was super, super lonely and unhappy. And it was during that break that I realized that I needed to start quitting. And when I say quitting, I needed to start letting go of the things and this perception and these images, these false narratives in my head of who I should be.
Yeah.
I realized that so much of my self-worth was tied to achievement. And I think we kind of know that, like in the world of like woo-woo, like, your self-worth is inherent. But when you actually are living a life and you realize that a lot of your doing is what gets you attention, a lot of your doing is what gets you that feeling of worth, it's really hard to kind of walk away from that. And so I had to challenge myself and say, this over here ain't working. This is no longer serving you. How about we do something different? How about we kind of leave that alone? Let's quit that and let's take that energy, that talent, that brilliance, everything that kind of like drives you, that passion, and put it into the things that really, really move and shake you and make you feel empowered.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You said something really great. Like we could say, oh, your value is inherent. But when we're conditioned, when we're conditioned a certain way, right? This is I love this conversation already. You just dropping gems already. When and I often talk about it in the context of our industry, in the medical industry, but we can actually look across the board in the work industry,
Yes.
and especially for Black people, Black women, women of color. We can look at the conditioning that happens that gives us the unconscious message that we're not inherently worthy.
Right.
Right?
A
There
lot
are the
of culture.
covert messages, and then there are the overt messages. You know what I'm saying? So I love that. And I see we have it. Welcome, Chelsea. Thank you so much for joining us live today. I love that you said that, because it's important for us to distinguish that we can know something intellectually, but subconsciously, all the messages that we've been given over time have, sort of settled in our unconsciousness and into ourselves. So thank you for bringing that. And I love what you did, which is recognize, man, I need to quit that. I need to quit that. Yeah.
It actually gave me this like almost like rebel identity, that when I started realizing that all of the work and all of the hustle that I was trying to get,
Mhm.
was it really serving me in terms of my purpose? What was my purpose?
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of conflate the two, someone else's mission and purpose with your own. And I realized that a lot of what I was doing, yeah, there was somewhat of a passion for it, but like I would say the vast majority of stuff I was doing to check boxes
Yeah.
because it was what was expected of me. And I mean, we're good at a lot of things, right? And so we're just like, oh, I'm good at it. So
Mhm.
let me just kind of like take it on.
Right.
And it really wasn't where I needed to be putting my energy. And it led me to my car with chest pain and anxiety. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't what I needed. And
Mhm.
I'm so grateful that I had space and time by taking a break to fully like listen to myself again.
Yeah.
A lot of the healing in this process has been relearning how to trust intuition, relearning how to listen to that inner voice. I
Yeah.
always make the joke as part of my quit formula, which I know we'll get to,
Yes.
that sometimes we like pray, oh my goodness, please God, give me the answer. And it will hit you right upside your head. And we still like, is that it? Because I don't know. And we'll try to talk ourselves out of like what our inner voice and what our intuition is trying to tell
Mhm.
us. And it's really not our fault. It's again conditioning. When we think
Mhm.
of back to being children, right?
Mhm.
How many of us heard the term little girls should be seen and not heard?
Yeah.
And I think of my own children, my youngest, I mean, he says whatever comes out. He has no filter. He tells you exactly what he means, what he's thinking, what he
Yep.
wants, what he doesn't want. And there is this like desire to kind of want to stamp that out. But he's just listening into that internal voice that's telling him we want this and we don't want this.
Right.
And we are conditioned as little girls and to women to not trust that voice, to
Mhm.
try to like outsmart the voice that's telling us,
Mhm.
nah, you don't need to take that on. We come
Yeah.
up with that laundry list of things that will, well, if I do this, X, Y, and Z, when really we're raging inside and say, girl, mayday, mayday, don't do this.
Yeah, so true. And you know, our live listener Chelsea says, when you're being devalued day in and day out, absorbing those messages can be easy, and the
Mhm.
spiritual power that it takes to stand in our
Mhm.
value is so needed. I love that. And you said it. I mean, it's interesting. One of the things you said is, we tend to work harder. Like we think, well, if I just work harder, or if I just do more of this, then I'll be seen, I'll be valued, I'll be heard. If I just take on that one more role that I know that I'm good at, I'll be seen, I'll be valued, I'll be heard. When the voice inside is saying, you need to quit that and go do this thing over here that you're passionate about.
Right.
Go do this thing over here, like I call it the knock, right? And we're listening, we're praying, we're asking higher power, hey, lead me in the right direction, guide me in the right, show me what I need to do. And the knock is, and God is knocking on the door, higher power is knocking, and you're like, no, but show me. And the knock is happening. You're like, well, I hear something, but I don't see anything, So
Oh my gosh, yes.
we can definitely, and you're right, we are taught to, and I think for sure as women, And I'll add on to that. I think as Black people too, we are taught to ignore that intuition. It's been, sort of like beat out of us,
Right,
quite
right.
literally.
Yeah.
And
Out of
so
survival, right? Like we were like,
survival.
we're saying we don't want to do this, but how can we show up, especially in these places, like these professional places, or academia where I was, and being able to say no.
Right.
Everything about my journey was about trying to be a yes person
Yeah.
because being in that space required it, right? Think
Yeah.
about like when you're applying for medical school and you have to interview, you have to like kind of have a certain appearance. You
Mhm.
can't bring too much attention to yourself.
Mhm.
Even in like, I mean, the examples of comments that are said about Black women's hair,
Yeah.
right? So you kind of
Mhm.
pull it back and you keep it real.
Yeah.
You kind of conform to this aesthetic of kind of conservative.
Yeah.
And then while you're in medical school, you're always trying to curry the favor and curry the accolades from faculty because that is what you need to get to the next level. So you're constantly in the space of trying to get someone's like positive attention and be
Right.
seen as the good person, the one
Right.
that doesn't, ruffle feathers, the one who kind of goes with the flow. And so when you do have kind of a alternative perspective or controversial or polarizing perspective, you are immediately cast out.
Yeah.
And so you can't do that.
Yeah.
Especially when you get through the journey, you have bills to pay, you have
Yeah.
loans to pay. You have
Yeah.
to follow the rules.
Yeah. And there's really some real anthropologic, like, trauma, generational trauma around being cast out,
Mm,
because, to be in community is to survive, and to
right.
be cast out is to be vulnerable
Mhm,
to predator,
mhm,
right? To be prey to predator. So then it is like, okay, I need to be a part of, I need to do what I need to do in order to fit in,
right.
be accepted. And if I speak too much, right? If I voice my opinion too much, if I go a different way too much,
Right.
then I might be cast out. So we make ourselves fit in these roles for times that, you know, much longer than we need to,
Right.
right? And so I want to, like, really transition, because quit is what you're all about. And I really love if you feel comfortable to you to share this quit
Absolutely.
journey, because I think it's pivotal to the acronym, your methodology that you've come with. So talk a little bit about your quit journey, and then talk a
Right.
little bit about how it led you to develop this quit process.
Yes. So I am like super uber, like if you look up achievement and overcoming odds in the dictionary, you would see my picture. And so, I'm a double Ivy League grad. Like I am super, super scrappy and I want to do good work in the world. And I have a lot of talents and a lot of strengths, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a point in my journey that I was trying to be promoted. I was trying to do all of these things. And I kept being told that you're not doing enough. You need to do a little bit more. And that was really demoralizing. And I was just like, I feel like I'm at the end of my rope with trying to like fit in with this. And when I had my break, that's when I realized I was like, it's because I don't fit in this. So,
Mhm.
how can I now take small steps to kind of reclaim a bit of myself? How can I get back to myself? And when you sit with yourself and in quiet and just allow your mind to kind of be free of kind of all of these expectations, the message came to me clearly, very clearly. And it was like, you need to quit all of this,
Mhm.
which was really scary for the Uber achiever in me because I'm like, what do you mean, brain, that I need to like just let go of this like vision that I held for myself? And it was clear that it wasn't my vision.
Yeah.
And so quit is an acronym that I came up with to help me that I literally go through as I'm trying to decide what to do, what not to do, even in my life now.
Yeah.
And so the Q is question why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm.
There have been so many opportunities that have come my way. And I'm like, well, this could be a really good way for me to get in here. And then the question is like, is that why you're doing it for? Because you think that this is going to be something that's going to get you to the next level? Or is it really coming from a space of like heart led, purpose driven work that you really want to do this? And so
Mhm.
being really vulnerable with yourself and understand, are you trying to do this because you're trying to achieve more for
Mhm.
someone else's recognition? Or is this really coming from a place of passion and purpose? The U is understand the consequence if you choose to do it or if you don't do it.
Yes.
And U is a capital YOU. And so I laugh because the airline industry has this down, right? It's like put your mask on first. But so many times we make decisions about doing things because of what we're afraid others will think.
Yes, ma'am.
So when I was serving on committees, I remember going through, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? This
Mhm.
person needs me. But if I had stayed in that role, it would have taken me out. My
Mhm.
anxiety was at an all-time high. I was having physical manifestations. Yeah, I could have pushed through. I've been doing that. But
Right.
at what point am I now going to center myself and what it is that I need? Because if I'm not good, that means that my family's not good, my children aren't good. I'm behind the wheel of my car in the garage, not wanting to go into the house, not being able to deal and have the bandwidth with anything else because I'm so burnt out.
Mhm.
Doesn't serve me, doesn't serve the people that really matter to me. And so understanding the consequence if you stay or if you go is really important, and really sit with that vulnerability to understand that if I walk away, who will I be on the other side? And
Mm.
then I is leaning into your intuition.
Mm.
And to relearn how to listen to yourself is so like powerful and uplifting, and it's like freedom.
Yeah.
I remember there was one particular role that I took and I said out loud, I literally said this out loud, I don't want to do this. And then it was immediately followed by, but this would be really good for this, and
Mhm.
there's no one else to do the work. And literally, my body was like, no, girl, do not do this. You already know the pain that's coming. Don't do this. I
Right.
even said it out loud, and I still did it anyway. That
Mm.
role is what landed me behind my my wheel in my car with chest pain. And
Yeah.
so when we lean into that intuition, we really honor ourselves. We really honor the deepest parts of us that know us so well, that know what we need. And sometimes it's really hard to know whether it's intuition or not, because for so long it's kind of been beaten out of us, right? To
Mhm.
trust that inner voice. And so that takes some work. And for
Mhm.
me, that came with being quiet, developing a meditative practice to just allow my brain to
Yeah.
just do what it's going to do and
Yeah.
allow it to just be. And then the T in the quit formula is to take action. We cannot give ourselves a new narrative of what
Mhm.
we're capable of or what the life that we want of our dreams. Like we can't
Mhm.
really change that unless we tie it to an action. And so when I made decisions about, okay, I'm going to leave this, outright quitting was really hard, but
Yeah.
I took action.
Yeah.
I drafted the resignation email
Mhm.
and I kept it in a drafts folder. And
Mhm.
I look at it every once in a while.
Yeah.
And when I would return to the work and I would feel that kind of like heaviness, I would
Mhm.
feel that anxiety rile up. That's when I knew, okay, now is the time. So I
Mhm.
didn't just kind of like come out the gate quitting.
Right.
I took steps to get me there. And then my body knew, my mind knew when it was time to let go. And then I
Mhm.
would press send. But I will tell you
Mm.
what happened. The more you start quitting, it becomes like a game. I'm like, "Ooh, what else can I quit?"
Yeah.
Because it felt so good knowing that this was no longer a responsibility. The heaviness lifted. I now had so much time and space and energy to put towards my other interests, which I love speaking and I love coaching. And so I was able to invest in myself in that way and use my
Yeah.
time over there,
Yeah.
pouring into me and not into
Mhm.
places that didn't value me or value my talents or my voice.
Mhm.
So the more that I started like just doing these small acts of quitting, I
Mhm.
started building up a new self concept of what I
Mhm.
was capable of. My world didn't fall apart.
Mhm.
The people who mattered the most, my family, my children, they were still here, right? And
Mhm.
saw me again, right? They didn't see
Yeah.
this grumpy person. They
Yes.
saw me again. I returned to myself.
Mhm.
And eventually, I made the decision to have the final quit, which was to leave my role in academia so that I can pursue entrepreneurship.
Wow. Wow. Let me tell you. Look, and that's our show for today. Thank you very That you just dropped all the gems, right? I mean, from the question, why are you doing this? And it's interesting because it's often that just that went in right there. Like if you had stopped at the cue, that would have been the entire show for me. Because I still have to do that, like in full, transparency. I get these opportunities and I'm like, oh, a squirrel, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. And it's like, well, why are you doing this? Like, what is the reason? Right. And then the consequences if you do, and the consequences if you don't. Like what will happen if you do, and what would happen if you don't, and which consequences are you going to be most okay with?
Right.
Which consequences are going to cause the most suffering?
Right.
Are you going to choose the suffering path because it's comfortable? Or are you going to choose the path that's going to lead you to what you want, right? Understanding the consequences. And I think what that speaks to is that there is always choice.
Choice.
Girl, there was always choice. People like, oh, I don't have a choice. No, you do have a choice. You just have to understand the consequences of the choice. And oftentimes we make out what we think the consequences are going to be. Sometimes we make them much worse than they actually are.
Right.
So I want to just lean into that. Like we need to run consequences by other people, because oftentimes we catastrophize consequences.
Yes, that was the word that just came into my head.
Right. We catastrophize consequences. And so we need to really understand, well, what, this is maybe the worst that could happen, but what also could happen? What's the best that could happen?
Indeed.
Right. So I really love that. And then following the intuition, man, I don't even need to say anything more about that because you just covered it all. Like, I love what you said when you said, you said it out loud. And yet you still, like, we are taught to ignore our intuition. And it's there. We can feel it. The bodily sensation. We can feel it.
That physical sensation.
Yeah. And we have to practice following our intuition. I think I think that's what, just in terms of like this whole quitting process, what I want to underline is it is a process. Because I love what you said. You didn't come out the gate quitting. Right. Like it was a process. And when you began to practice quitting, it became easier, right? Because it is a process that you practice. And there are small things you can quit and there are big things you can quit, right? And so, and I think one of the things that you didn't say overtly, but I was kind of in between, is that you didn't do it alone.
No.
Right. You had your family, especially, and I'm sort of outing a little bit, your amazing husband, who was like, I got you. Right. Right. So and then, your coaches, your community.
Coached up.
Coached up. Community, like mentors, you had lots of mentors. And I think that's another thing that sometimes can make quitting scary, is if we think we're alone. And when we realize that we're not alone, that we have community, when you find those safe people in your life that are not, they're not just cheerleaders, they're perspective givers.
Yes.
Then that helps to move you along that process so that you can take action even when it's uncomfortable. Right. Because taking new action is always going to be uncomfortable.
I know that when I was burnt out, and I realize it now, I felt like my body was in overdrive. I was in true fight or fight, like from the moment that I woke up. Like I just felt icky in my body. I didn't understand fully that like it was like all of this cortisol raging around, and I just didn't feel well. Yeah. And when you're in that fight or flight, you're laser focused on like catastrophe, right? I mean, your body is like, what like bear is going to come out of the woods and like eat me? And so you're constantly laser focused. And I think what was really key, especially with coaching, my coaches were able to see the forest for the tree and really see like the larger landscape of my life. And I remember talking to you after I made the decision to quit. You said, you just needed to make the choice. It was there. You just But it's so hard though, right? Like when you're like, oh, like the bear is coming to get me, sort of thing, to be
Yeah.
able to take a step back and really evaluate, like, oh, I do have a choice here. That's how our brains kind of get to this like end point where we just feel, oh my goodness, like if I don't do this, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that really helped me during this time and helped me tap into intuition was a
Yeah.
tapping session that I had.
Yes.
Oh,
Shout
and
out to Dr. Jill.
shout out to Dr. Jill. So I literally was having, when I tell you it was right here, I can like my anxiety shows up right here. And what was crazy is that I had this in residency. There was always this one rotation. I would literally walk onto the floor, the chest pain would start.
Mhm.
And then literally I would go the same day, I would just switch to a different role. Like if I was on call and covering labor and delivery or whatever, it would go away.
Right.
I would go onto the floor, it would come back. I would leave and go home, it would go away. And I did my due diligence. I did the whole workup and I knew it was anxiety, but I just needed somebody to say, yeah, you're anxious. And at the time, I could like manage it. And then when I graduated, kind of went away.
Mhm.
And so when this chest pain started coming back, I'm like, haha. And it was so uncomfortable. I felt like something was wrong with me because I couldn't shake it. And I
Yeah.
wanted to run. And I think I used the exact words when I'm having chest pain, I literally want to like extract myself from
Mhm.
those circumstances.
Yeah.
And in that tapping session, what we did was we reframed that chest pain as my intuition, trying to
Mm.
get my attention in so
Yes.
many different ways and little
Yes.
whispers and things like
Yes.
that. I literally would say things out loud, I don't want to do this, and would do it anyway. And my
Mhm.
body was like, okay, I got a way to get her attention. Let me
Right.
just throw a little chest pain.
Right.
And that became my intuition. And so
Right.
when I would feel it, I wouldn't run. I would
Mhm.
say, you're telling me I'm not safe here. What
Mhm.
else do I need to know?
Yeah.
You know something? Chest pain went away. Like literally, I didn't have any more chest pain. And
Yeah.
I think it was because I finally made a decision
Mhm.
to listen,
Mhm.
but then also to pause and pivot.
Yes. Yes. And that's to take action. And I love the thing that you said that you will know. Because people always ask, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? I just was asked that question the other day. How will I know? I was like, only you can know. When you tap into the intuition tells you. And I always say, intuition is that high connection with higher being, higher power,
Mhm.
whatever you believe in,
Yes.
that's higher, one greater than oneself. And also, in my line of work, we also say intuition is tapping into the unconscious mind, right? That part of you that's connected, that knows everything about everything, right? The universal intelligence, we
Yes.
might call it,
Oh,
right?
so good.
Yeah, right. And so when you really are listening and tapping into that intuition, then you know when to take action.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't persecute ourselves for not taking action sooner than we do, right? It's like, "Oh, I wish I would have. I wish I," and there's always, there's an inkling of, wait, man, if I had done this many years ago, because I mean, I still have that sometimes. Like, man, if I had done this many years ago, where would I be? If I had invested in real estate this many years ago, where would I be?
Right.
But like, it's, to persecute oneself for taking action when you take action does not do any good.
Right.
So whenever you take action is always the perfect time to take action. Just take action. Just take action.
Small
Small.
pieces of action. I
Exactly.
mean, I was writing masterclass resignation letters, beautifully written language. Like, I'm like, I can post it, someone can use it. I was quoting Mother Maya Angelou. Like, I mean, masterclass that was just coming from my fingers. And I just put it in the drafts folder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because you practice.
Mhm.
It's micro habits.
Mhm.
It's like micro actions that lead to macro actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So now you help other women quit doing the stuff that they don't need to be doing.
When you really sit with it and say, I am not fully living in my purpose, you're waking up every day on a Monday trying to get to Friday, not even like literally just trying to like work your way through the week because you're so unhappy, you're drained, you don't really have a sense of like who you are. Like, that's a lonely place. When I had my 4 weeks off, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't even know what I like anymore. Oh, I found it really quickly because when you give yourself that space, you could. But if you're like bogged down and burnout and you're doing all of this busy work that really is not in service to you, then you don't even know yourself anymore.
Yeah.
And so for me, I wanted to help other women. I'm first generation. So I love my first generation crew because we have a lot of pressure, y'all. But I help first generation professional women of color quit, but not just quit in terms of like the quitting of the job, but
Right.
quit all the things that are no longer serving you and taking that energy, taking those passions, all of the things that you were throwing yourself into that really wasn't about you, wasn't for you, and taking it and putting it in a place where you're truly uber passionate about. And
Mhm.
one of the ways that I think we can do that is through entrepreneurship.
Yes, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know what? I mean, I think we should have a part two. And I think we should make it about all the things you could be quitting,
Mm,
right? Like, I love the path of entrepreneurship as a place to be transitioning to. But what are all the other things that we can be quitting? What are
yes.
all the other habits that we have, like as moms?
Mm.
Oh my gosh. Like, we could have a whole episode
Whole
of
episode.
mom quitting. Like, how
Yes.
do we as moms or as parents even, right? I can't speak for dads. Maybe we need to have like a three-way um conversation between me and you and another dad. I actually have someone in mind where we need to talk about what are the things that we need to be quitting doing as moms, as Black parents, as parents in general, so that we
Oh,
create new
that's
conversations.
like a chapter in my book. Like there was so much quitting I had to do around my self-concept of being a mother. Yes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So that's an episode. And then we need to do a quitting around self-care. We need a whole episode around quitting and self-care.
Right.
I really do believe there are some things that we do in terms of neglect of self and the belief systems. I think a lot of this comes from belief systems. And we can have a conversation about what beliefs we need to be quitting too.
Mhm.
So we got a lot of conversations to have, but I just you're gonna be my repeat co-host.
Listen, I'm ready. This is amazing. And you always have a way to kind of like take whatever I say and like elevate it to that next level so that the audience really can kind of connect with it. I mean, it is a scary journey. I don't think anything that's worth it isn't.
Yes.
But it is one of power. It is one
Mhm.
of empowerment.
Yes.
And just happy that I get a chance to tell my story here.
Yes. Well, I am grateful that you came and told your story here, and that you will hopefully continue to come back, and we can dive deeper in, because people, we need to be quitting bad habits, unresourceful habits,
Yes.
right? And so, what I want you to do is I want you to tell the audience if they want to have a discovery call with you, if they want to work with you, if they want to, have you come speak for them, how do they get in touch with you?
Awesome. So I am quite active on Instagram. My handle is at Taniqua Miller MD. And for any speaking engagements or just want to connect with me for conversation, you can reach me at hello@taniquamd.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And we will have all of your links in the show notes. So for those who are listening live, we'll put them in when we re-release, because this, we do the live version, and then some weeks down the line, we're going to get another. They're going to get another dose of the audio versions. For those listening on replay, you'll see this in the description. On YouTube, you'll see it in the description, and on LinkedIn, we'll put this in the show notes when we release it. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being with us. Yes. And I also want to thank the listeners, those who listen live, those who listen on replay. Without the listeners, there is no podcast. I will ask that you share this episode, because you know someone who needs to be quitting. If not yourself, someone that needs to be quitting doing things and holding on to things that no longer serve them. So share this episode with friend, colleague, parent, child, whatever. Share the episode and make sure that people are quitting doing things that don't serve them. And also, when we release this, we on the audio platform, we will let you know. I do encourage you to leave a comment, to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, to let people know how wonderful Dr. Taniqua is. These episodes have value. So with that, I say thank you again, Dr. Taniqua.
Thank you for having
Taniqua Miller MD.com.
TaniquaMD.com.
Taniqua MD. TaniquaMD.com. Hello at
TaniquaMD.com.
TaniquaMD.com. Reach out to her and at Taniqua Miller
MD.
MD.com on Instagram. And again, we'll have it all in the show notes. All right, you all, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, Dr. Taniqua.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Namaste, y'all.